And we're live. Welcome to the Bold Leadership Story Show, where we talk about experiences shaping exceptional lives. And I have an exceptional person in Martin Vu, excuse me, uh, talking about his stories. He's an attorney and also an entrepreneur. And I'm excited to learn about Martin's story and how he got started and where he's headed. So, Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. Great opportunity to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's always fun to have um, people from my hometown to to chat with on the show. So Martin is we got started chatting originally at one of the Temecula Chamber events, I believe, or maybe it was
Yes.
a BNI event, and we were talking about patents and IP, intellectual property. And so that's an exciting part of my life that I worked with some really cool companies that had IP to protect. And so maybe we'll get into some of that if we can. It's funny. I still think about the non-disclosure agreements that I signed 20 plus years ago that, they're probably long past uh, their applicability, but you still want to protect that stuff. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So Martin is a registered patent attorney, and he's practicing intellectual property um, and business law since 2021. There's over 20 years of utility operations and supervisory experience in Fortune 100 energy utility companies and clients. Martin serves as one of California's energy efficiency professional experts who helps inventors and companies to protect their IP assets, their intellectual property. He's received his Bachelor of Science degree in Electronics and Computer Engineering Technology and MBA from California State Polytechnic University, Cal Poly, in Pomona. I went to a sister school, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Yes,
So,
you're a Mustang. Yes.
yeah. Martin also obtained his project management professional PMP certification from the University of California, Irvine, and completed his Juris Doctor (JD) degree from Trinity Law School. Congratulations!
Thank you so much. Yes, it's a big journey, but very rewarding at the same time. So very, very humble and grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're very accomplished. How did you start your career? Um, what's driven you to get to this point? What was your vision?
Yeah, great question, Jim. The funny story is, and this quote comes from a book as well. So what I'm sharing with you is also another book that I've commented on. And I started my career as a bartender at a restaurant called Islands Restaurant in Pasadena, California,
All
and
right.
and through that networking relationship as a server and a bartender, you run into very many people, and that's where I learned my networking skills through bartending. And so one day, a guy from Southern California Edison, the local electric company here, said, "Hey, so what are you going to do right after college?" And I said, I have a job lined up with General Electric to do some engineering stuff. And he said, "Well, if that doesn't pan out, here's my card. And I've known you for a few years now, and let's see what happens." And so, sure enough, at that time in my life, I just got married, I just graduated, and I figured I needed a job that was going to be stable. And GE was one of the best, right, in terms of coming out of
Sure.
school. It just didn't align with our my new marriage in terms of the scheduling. My wife was working nights, I was working first shift on East Coast, and we never saw each other. So I picked
Mm.
up that phone and I called that gentleman up and I said, "Hey, is that job opportunity still available at Southern California Edison?" And he said, "Well, depends on whether or not you want to learn the energy business." And I told him I had zero experience. And from there, he said, "Don't worry about it. I can teach that as long as I can have you in terms of personality, drive, and dependability." So that was really where it started.
Okay. Wow. That's a big lesson for people. I think is it's not always all about the resume and what you know. It's that background, that drive, that interest in learning and being successful. Wouldn't you
That's
say?
correct. I would generally agree. You can't teach that drive. You can't teach that eagerness and willingness to learn. You either have it or you don't. And it shows that sincerity does show in people. Some people do it because they say they want to do it because it's the next thing on the resume, or because it comes with compensation and other benefits. But it'll start to disintegrate very quickly. But the eagerness to learn and want to be motivated and driven, you have it. And if you do have it, people see it really clearly.
Yeah. Do you see that as a gift?
I see that as a gift, yeah, and a blessing. If one does have it or is willing to acquire it, I think it is a wonderful gift because, let's be quite honest, like as much as we've learned in our lives, our short time here on earth, there's still a lot to learn. And so that's what I've learned, is that I don't know clearly enough as I need to. And at my age and 20 years in the business, I think I still have a lot to learn. So yes.
Excellent. What was it, Martin, that gave you that perspective early on to be that open to trying something new?
I think, if you're open to a concept called failure and failing forward, realizing that you don't know what you want to do, you don't know what's out there, and being willing to try new things, I think is really important. And even if you fail at it and you fail at it over and over, but you fail forward, I think that opens the opportunity to expand your maturity, but also it allows you to learn lessons that you wouldn't learn if you continuously succeeded. And I've failed many times in my life and in my career and in business as an entrepreneur. So those are the lessons that you remember most because you grow from that experience. If you're constantly succeeding and you feel that, every challenge you embark upon or come across is not challenging and easy, you don't grow from that experience. So I think that's really what I've learned across 20 years of professional and then more years of serving the community in growing as a professional.
Very good. Growing up, maybe just curious, you may or may not have had an environment that fostered that idea that, well, it's okay to fail. Is that resonate with you at all in your environment growing up, in your experience?
Absolutely, it does. I'm obviously second generation, which meant my parents immigrated here first generation from Vietnam after 1975 from the Vietnam War. Humble experiences. My dad was, strawberry picking, dishwashing, but then moved up and saw that the American dream of obtaining financial freedom, a home, couldn't be achieved based on those jobs, that he could only qualify for at that time in 1975. So he saw that the best and brightest minds in America were investors, where they're investing in the market, the stock market, or in real estate or a business. He did 2 out of the 3. He didn't do the third one, which was being an entrepreneur. So growing up, the expectation for me was go get good grades. But he didn't understand the mechanism on how to do that. He just understood that you get good grades to get into a good school, so that way you get a good job and then acquire the assets that creates that financial freedom to allow you to have that American dream. I had to learn that. I had to learn that being second generation on the educational system, the corporate environment, and I had to find myself and navigate through those channels without really a lot of guidance from my predecessor generation, my father and my mother. So I really had to learn it. And so to your point, we grew up in a lower socioeconomic background, so it didn't have much. And so we we appreciated everything we got, and we fought for every opportunity we were granted. So yes, it definitely resonates with me, and every opportunity, even now, I greatly appreciate.
Hmm. That's a wonderful perspective that, some people don't take. Some people are, in that mindset. Well, I'm a victim, and I grew up in this, and I don't have advantages, and so I'm stuck here. But you didn't, or haven't. Why the difference?
And this is a little bit maybe heartstrings, but I think sometimes even the closest people in your life doubt whether you are able to achieve certain accomplishments or milestones in your life. And even the closest of family members, whether it's your parents, your siblings, aunts, uncles, and friends, right? um, there's obviously criticism along the way. And so growing up, I wasn't the tallest, I wasn't the most well-to-do, I wasn't the most handsome looking guy, I wasn't always the smartest. And so with all those quote unquote deficiencies on a resume, if you will, uh, the one thing I did have was, um, I guess, the grit and the resiliency to want to persevere over those adversities and say, I'm not going to be labeled something based on other people's perspective. And I said to myself, don't kind of corner yourself into there, and see if you can break those barriers. And I failed. That's where the fail forward comes in. It's where people said you couldn't do it. You're not smart enough. You're not rich enough. You're not good looking enough. Whatever the case may be. I said, okay, maybe, but let me try. Let me try and see how far I can get. And of course, failure over and over and over, closed doors, being told no. It told me, okay, well, don't give up, because one day you're going to break through, right? And of course, you need a good support system. And I'm a man of faith, so now, I wasn't always, but I'm a man of faith now. And that relationship and with the Lord and walking with Him really allowed me to grow. So yeah, that a lot of people do want to give up and don't want to persevere through it, because it's very difficult, right? Being told you're not whatever they want to label you as, but then you have to have that fire in you to say, well, what's the alternative?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so if you have that open mindedness, and then obviously have a good support system and that walk with the Lord, like, I think many times those opportunities will unravel itself, and then naturally you have an open window to walk through, and hopefully people walk through it. That's the other thing. The window may be there, but you still have to walk through it, or the door should be there, but you still have to walk through that door.
What do you feel when you walk through that door? How's that feel?
It's mixed emotions, Jim. I think half the time it's pinching myself saying, is this real? Am I actually walking through this opportunity right now? Because if you were to predict when I was younger, where would my life be? Nobody, even including myself, would have said, this is where you would be today. And so half the time I'm going, is this real? And then secondly, it's a moment of gratitude and saying, whew, I actually was able to walk through this door. What an accomplishment, and so grateful for this opportunity. So having that opportunity, I look back and I say, okay, well, I've opened this door, I've walked through this door. How can I pay that forward to the next generation? Because they may not know how to walk through this door. So, what my wife and I do in the community, we teach middle school and high school and young college students on how to create their own businesses, how to put a business plan together, how to pitch to a Shark Tank panel, doing all the homework. Because academia may be for them, it may not be for them. But the skills of being a business owner is going to be vital, whether you work for corporate America and or yourself. And so these are the skills we try to impute upon the next generation of leaders in our community to acquire, so that way they have options. Whereas for me, I followed what my dad said was the strategic path, which was go get a great education so you can get into a great school so you can get that good job. And there is some truth to that, but as we get into the 21st century here, where we already here, I should say, that model starting to change a little bit.
Hmm. Yes, it is. Uh, Today is a whole different ballgame. I had the same advice growing up, and it's interesting to me that that still exists with all of the opportunities we have now to be entrepreneurial. Um, you mentioned um, having a group, having people around you, and what who are your biggest influencers, and how did you meet them, and how did those evolve? Those relationships evolve?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, growing up, you want your parents to be there in your corner and just rooting you on. And for most, maybe for most households, that's the case. Maybe not. For me, that wasn't the case. My dad worked two jobs. My mom, worked as well. So I was almost like a latchkey kid at the time. So who did I look up to and want to emulate? My future state, who I am today. I would say that evolved over time. I think the good Lord put different people in my life at the right time to cultivate where I am today. So the skills or the experiences that I need to acquire at that time uh, would evolve with different people. So that's tough to say over the course of, I'm 44. So over the course of, 40 plus years of my life, that's changed a bit. But I would say the past 30 plus years, I've known my wife since I was 13.
Oh wow.
And so, yeah, so we've been lifelong friends, and she's been just a pillar of my life. And I would say that she inspired me to be better, because, to get married in your young 20s, obviously you need capital, among other things. And so she was a driver to make, she wasn't looking for that, but it was one of those things that I knew I had to acquire in order to, start that new life of mine. So with her, and I would say that she was inspiring to me because no matter how difficult it got, she was that person that was rooting in my corner. She didn't marry me for looks or money or accolades or achievements or pedigree, because I had none of that. So the fact that she stuck by me through all those years, I would have to say she gets kind of the leadership of people who motivated me through the years. And
Okay.
but there are many more people there. I can't kind of give that one, but if I had to, it would be her.
Okay. Well, great. That's excellent. It's always it's such a blessing to have someone that close to you that's such a value in that way.
Yes.
It's just gives you so much more comfort, I would imagine, and confidence.
Yes. I'm very grateful. Yeah. And she definitely checks those boxes and some.
Excellent. Where does that come from for you? Um, you're you obviously very humble. You've got great accomplishments, and you've done a lot in your business life, but you're very relaxed and calm. I've known you for about a year now, and I've seen you recently much more. And every time that we meet, you're very consistent and very easy to be with, relaxed. And I would think, based on your resume, someone of your caliber would be different somehow. But it's really nice to you make it easy to be around you. How do you do that?
One, I think those fail forward experiences really were challenging as a young child. And so I had to grow up really quickly to learn that life is going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so chaos is going to happen. And managing that, and I did serve in the military at the age of 17. So because, we didn't have a lot of college money, actually we had none. So my dad said it's either the military that pays for your college, or you're going to have to find your own money to figure it out. And so
Mhm.
as a 17-year-old boy, I was still a boy. And being told you're going to serve your country, going through boot camp, and you know, potentially going on the front line and serving your country and giving up your life, and seeing others that sacrificed, those are humbling experiences. And so when you go through those experiences and you look around, you say, well, maybe not playing professional sports is the worst thing if you don't get it, or if you don't get to go to prom or a certain event, the school you've been coveting for years. Those are big letdowns when you get that letter and you get that rejection. And so
Mhm.
I was told early on, and I kind of set expectations for myself that to avoid disappointment, set the bar low, but with your eyes up higher, with that goal in mind. So that way, when a letdown does occur, you're not frantically scrambling, going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Because you already have that expectation to say, hey, look, here's the bar pretty low, but you're going to chip away and continue to strive for that goal that you have.
Mm.
So the patience and the calmness, I think, is a result of those experiences, those fail forward experiences where I've been let down. Not only I've let myself down, but other people have let me down over the years, that I prepared myself such that when catastrophe or bad things happen to even great people, um, you can still stay calm along the way and know that, again, a man of faith, the Lord hasn't left you, and it's not the worst thing in the world that whatever has happened to you. Other people out there are experiencing much more detrimental experiences than what you're going through, and so that's been a calming, um, mentality that I've been able to cope with, if you will,
Mhm.
through the years.
Well, it's excellent. It's quite an accomplishment, I think, to have that.
Thank
Um,
you.
it really helps for me, gives me much more confidence to say, hey, I'd like to work with you in
For
some
sure.
way. Yeah. So uh, I'd like to, if you're open to it, bring up your website and we can chat about that. You've got two websites.
Yes.
And so this is the first one, and this one is Fargo Patent and Business Law.
Yes.
And that's you on the left.
That is.
Quite a crew. So you've got offices in Fargo, is that North Dakota?
Fargo, North Dakota. That's
It's
their
cold
headquarters.
there. It gets cold there. Yeah.
Below
And then,
zero. And below zero.
absolutely. Yeah. And then Marietta, right here near Temecula, and then Colorado Springs.
Yes.
So, and you're handling, what's your specialty in the crew?
Yes. So, I got hired by Fargo not necessarily because I had this stellar um, legal professional resume. It was more because I had a business background.
Okay.
They needed someone, obviously, with the credentials of being an attorney, first and foremost, that was going
Mhm.
to focus on intellectual property, and more specifically patents. And I don't know if many of your audience know this, but to be a patent attorney, um, you have to have a STEM undergraduate degree or some sort of experience with STEM related
Right.
background. And then on top of that, go through law school. Well, most of us are either one side of the brain or the other. We're either very creative, or we're very, routine and organized and methodical. And so to have a patent attorney, you have to have both. You have to be
Mhm.
creative, but you also have to be methodical at the same time. And there's only less than 3% of all attorneys out there, and there's 1.3 million attorneys in the United States. Less than 50,000 across the nation are patent attorneys. So, like, I think it's less than 40,000 actually. And of those 40,000, the real practitioners are, about 60%. So you're looking at about 25,000 active practitioners of all attorneys. And so when I got hired, he said, "Look, my boss in the middle there, Tom, he said, you don't have the credentials to be what a patent attorney needs to be from what I'm looking for. However, you have the business acumen, and I think you can help me open up a branch out in California. And if you're open to it, we'll kind of expand this such that you can learn the practice, but also help build the business, which I know you're good at." So that's how Fargo was brought to California. Because yes, Fargo is in North Dakota, and it can keep its weather there because I love Southern California. But that's how we brought Fargo 0-degree weather to California.
All right. Well, having worked in that world for a number of years with companies that were producing patentable, and we created products that were patented as well, and I was involved with several of those projects. It's high stakes and very important and very expensive sometimes. And also, once you've got the patent in place, to protect that patent. And you want a really sharp patent attorney to, I would think, make your patents pretty much bulletproof. And that's where your business acumen comes in handy, I think, right?
That's correct. So one thing that I think separates me from maybe other patent attorneys, or even most attorneys, that is that I really try to use those bartending skills to learn about my clients. What I'm trying to say there is, when you're a bartender, you're almost like a counselor. You listen to people's problems and their struggles for the day or the week or whatever the case may be. And they let loose because they're having a glass of wine or maybe a bottle of beer, and they're just letting themselves go a little bit and telling their story. And as a bartender, you listen to that. And I just quickly picked up that the more you can relate to them and you can remember at least one or two things about them, the more willing they were going to be comfortable with you and saying, "Oh, wow, I'd like to have Martin again as my bartender, just because he can understand me a little bit better." So I took those qualities from the restaurant industry and I brought it into, and I used to work at In-N-Out as well. So there's hard work and customer service as well. I brought those qualities into the legal and engineering professions. And so from that standpoint, when someone's telling you that they have a business problem, or they're telling you they have an intellectual property challenge, you sit there and you let them talk. You let them tell you what their story is, and then you try and funnel it and say, well, what do you want as an outcome? And so building that relationship allows that fostering of trust. And once you have that, no matter what the challenge is, it's a partnership from that standpoint. For me to them, saying, I'm here to support you and to do my best to achieve your goals within reason. And if you look at my Google reviews for Fargo Patent and Business Law in Marietta, all 28 of them will speak a story about how I impacted their life or business. So it's not just about patent protection, which is at the core of the business and the service. Yes, we are here to try to create monopolies for small businesses where possible. But at the same time, we're trying to foster that relationship simultaneously.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's who would call you to get that kind of advice or work done? What kind of companies or owners? I would think mostly owners would be calling you.
So the big firms and the big companies like the Googles and Apples, they have those big law firms that are, helping and supporting them on their patent portfolios. And given that we're a newer business here in Marietta, you're not going to get the big firms because they don't even know who you are. That's why we're out here trying to market and make sure to create awareness that we exist. So the calls we're getting are mostly solo inventors or business owners, to your point, that may not be getting the attention that they deserve. One, because we don't live in a metropolitan city such as San Diego, Orange County, or Los Angeles. Secondly, the tech industry, although starting to come up, we're more maybe manufacturing and maybe some other industries here that haven't had the opportunity to innovate as large as the other metropolitan cities. So that being said, there's an underserved market here in the Temecula Valley, and having someone like myself here, I believe there's less than double digits of us out here, meaning I would even say 5 or less practitioners in the patent law space in the Temecula Valley. Someone may have the credentials, but they're not actively practicing, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. I'm one of those 5. And so I get calls from all sorts of, people in terms of solo inventors saying, I got this new idea, or small business owners saying, I'm about to deploy this product on the market, whether it's Etsy, Instagram, Amazon, whatever the case may be. And then lastly, maybe they're an Instagram influencer, or they have some sort of presence on social media, and they have something that they need to protect. It can come in the form of a patent, a trademark, or copyright. And that's where they pick up the phone and say, what do I do? How do I get this protected? Or they got a letter saying from Instagram saying, you took my logo, or you took my name, and now I'm threatening to sue you. Well, so what do I do in that situation? So that's where I come in, and I try to understand their situation, ask them what their goals are, and then try to find an effective solution that will get them to the finish line.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's nice to have Martin Vu in town.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's actually a really nice blossoming entrepreneurial section here in town that's starting to get some traction, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's great. Good spot. How did you pick Temecula of all the places to go? What you mean, you could have gone anywhere. Why did you pick Temecula?
Born and raised in Los Angeles. I've lived there most of my life, with the exception of San Antonio when I did basic training. But my wife and I in 2009 saw that, we wanted to expand our family and have children. Costs at that time, right after the 2008 meltdown, for housing was still pretty high, even though it came down, still pretty high. The school systems weren't that great, and safety was also a concern in the suburban life of LA. So we looked southeastbound, and, we were realtors at the time, and we said, well, what's this Murrieta thing all about? And so we've heard people live out in Temecula for years, but we always thought, okay, wine country and a bunch of tumbleweed. What else is out there?
Yeah.
Well, in 2009, we found our home, and we've been out here since then, and we love it. We haven't left. And so we set up shop and put up, set roots here. And that's how we started in Temecula, or Murrieta, Temecula Valley area.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love it here too. I've been here for 33 years, I think, something like that. A long time. So yeah, it's a great place.
Very great.
So let's bring up, you have an entrepreneurial bent, and you've got another website, RMS Energy.
Yes.
And I wanted to see if you could share a little bit of that with us. What is that about?
Sure. Let me put in the chat the other website. I think you may have gotten. This is probably the one from Colorado.
This is not the right one.
No, that's okay though. Yeah. So this is a good topic, by the way, because that name RMS Energy got trademarked by that company in Colorado, and I was slow to market, and I was dragging my feet to file the trademark, and they got it first. So
okay.
So right. They're not a competitor. They do a different type of energy work, but they're more on the transmission and distribution side of things, where they're putting up poles and wires and infrastructure. What I do, Jim, is formerly working for Southern California Edison. I helped, from a technical side, consumers on rebates and incentives, and running the numbers, the economics with respect to if you adopted a new air conditioning system or lighting system, how does that reduce your bottom line on your bill? You know, people are complaining now that their bills are going up from 200 to 300 now to like 500 in residential setting. There you go. That's my website.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. And so what we do is we try to bridge the gap. We get hired by Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and Pacific Gas and Electric, and the gas company, the four major investor-owned utilities in California, on how to reduce consumption. And the reason why, unlike most business models, unlike kind of what you do or what I do on the patent side, the more you sell, the more you make as a business. I think most people understand that as a business 101.
Sure.
But here in California, being deregulated, the more electricity sales does not equate to more profit necessarily. And so the state of California, since the 1970s, has tried to do something different, which was putting in regulations on buildings and appliances such that we don't build more infrastructure. More infrastructure costs a lot of money. There's a lot of environmental impacts to building a generational plant. And so the goal here is to try and reduce consumption. So just like on your balance sheet or even on your budgeting, you either make more money or you reduce your expenses. And here in California, our goal is to reduce expenses by reducing consumption. And the way in which we do that is we evaluate technologies like the Nest thermostat or a new lighting product or a refrigeration product, and we test it. We actually go out and roll up our sleeves and we test it. And you'll see on my page here, you'll see on the RMS Teams, there's photos of me out in the field testing at dairy farms. And you might want to go to corporate company culture. I think it might be there. But yeah, we're out in dairy farms or manufacturing plants, rolling up our sleeves and testing product. And the reason why that's important is because before incentives are thrown out there, the state of California and the investor-owned utilities want to make sure that the products are viable. And so that's where we come in. We test it out and we report back to the state and we say, if you put that new fan in, or if you put that new air conditioning equipment in, it will save X percent. And as a result, Edison will give you a rebate to offset your costs, because it's cheaper to give you a rebate than it is to build a new generational plant. So that's the name of the game of RMS Energy. We try to bridge what the folks in Sacramento and San Francisco are trying to implement in terms of policy, energy policy, and we tie that with business owners like yourself and say, this is how you reduce your cost by getting incentives by the products that we've tested on behalf of the state.
And there's that idea that we started our conversation with: higher character, trained skill.
That's correct. Full circle.
Full circle. Very good. And where does this fit in for you? You've got, you're working as a patent attorney. I'm sure there's a lot going on there. And then you've got the RMS company, and it looked like, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Grace, is that Grace?
That's my wife.
Is she wife?
Yeah,
okay.
that's my wife.
So you guys are principals in this company?
Yes. So I'm the owner. I'm the M of RMS. I had two partners. They decided entrepreneurship was not for them back in 2016. So I ended up buying them out in 2016. I brought Grace on to help me run the company. And since then, she's been operational manager. So she kind of oversees the operations. And yes, I sign the checks. But I'm the strategic person that the utilities hire. And they say, okay, well, Martin, come to the table, get this strategic effort off, and then obviously bring in your staff to do the work. So as soon as I get the effort going, I walk away, Grace manages it, and then the team works together to get the job done. And then that allows me to wear my intellectual property hat, as a patent attorney, to do that work. Yes.
Sounds like you've got your act together.
Thank you.
Yes. So what's in the future for you, Martin? Where do you see yourself going in the next 20 years?
Ooh, I feel like that's a loaded question and an interview question, as a job interview, but it's like one of those things where I do see myself serving in some capacity this community, if not already. And I believe Temecula and Murrieta and the surrounding cities is the next hub of opportunities. And that's not why I am serving. The reason why I am serving is because I do want to see the gifts that I've been granted and the opportunities I've been afforded and pay it forward to the next generation. So that can comprise of a couple of things, Jim. Education and training to the next generation of leaders. It can also mean showing existing business professionals the skills I've acquired, whether through corporate America and or through my own business, on how to take that to the next level for their own businesses. And then providing that legal protection, whether on the IP side and or on the business side, just giving back to the community in that way, such that they become more prosperous and more risk averse, in the sense that they're protected, risk protected, I should say, not averse, but risk protected. So they're aware where the landmines are at, and make their appropriate choices for their business.
So I've pulled up your Google site for Fargo. You piqued my interest when you said you should read our reviews.
Yes, for Murrieta. It's got to be specific for Murrieta, because we do have a Fargo landing page as well for Google reviews. So there should be about 28 reviews right now. And I just started that in the last, really started that in the last 6 months, just to see how, I could take the business to the next level. And I had a couple about a year ago, but like for the most part, less than 6 months. So in the last 6 months, I've amassed about 26 of them that, it should speak for itself, I should say.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, you can see, go in there and you can see who's, what kind of companies and people are working with you. And then you can get some really good insight as to how Martin and his team are doing. So, yeah, it's great.
Yes, I think it helps, as you know, Jim, when people speak for you, meaning about your credentials and your work, it speaks louder than you trying to promote yourself. And
yeah, well, you earn those. And a little bit of pressure, thinking, you're bringing up my reviews, but you seem, again, real relaxed and easy to take. But you've obviously earned your spot and doing a great job. So,
thank you.
I have one more question. You got time for one more?
I do.
Okay, awesome. I asked this of everybody on the show. Taking a look at your entire life, what was the boldest leadership decision that you've made, and what were the consequences?
Yes, and I can speak to this because we lived it not too long ago. 11 years ago, I left a very cushy corporate job at Southern California Edison, paying 6 digits, pension benefits, obviously everything you could hope for in a career at a corporate Fortune 100, Fortune 200 company. I left that all on the leap of faith of starting RMS Energy Consulting, thinking that because of my business connections there at the utilities, I could get business right away as an entrepreneur. There was not only a cool-off period of 12 months, my first contract with them didn't happen until 3 years later, which meant that first year, we made $15,000 between 3 partners. So leaving a cushy 6-digit figure job for $5,000 after the split, and that's before taxes, was a bold move. And at the time, I remember some family and friends questioned that. I was in the middle of law school at the same time, and my wife had gotten pregnant with our third child. So the biggest and boldest move during this period the question was why? What is he doing? Why is he doing that? And, that leap of faith and that, that occurred, and we prayed on it with our church. And so God opened that door because 1,300 people applied for a severance package at the time for Southern California, but only 130 got it. And me and my two partners were the youngest ones that got that package. And so that was the opening. So to answer your question, what was the boldest thing? Leaving a cushy environment that I knew was more secure to start a business as an entrepreneur with no guarantees and making less than $5,000 that first year to feed my family while going to law school and having our third child in the process. I think that's the boldest thing that I've done in my career.
Yeah, I would say that qualifies. I have a similar story, but nothing like that.
Love to hear it. I'd love to hear it. Okay.
I'll give you this short version. Basically, I was working. I was out of college maybe 5 years, and I had a plan to go into sales. 6 years, and so I worked in engineering and did well. I started getting promotions, and money was getting up there. I was making close to $100,000 when I was in my early 20s or mid 20s, which was at that time really good, with a big company making really good money. But I wasn't happy, and I knew that I wanted to move into sales, and I had to do it soon because I just keep moving up the ladder and getting less and less happy. So I decided to leave, and I thought I'd set up a situation, but my wife got pregnant and she had a really good job. Right after I left, she lost her job, and I went from making close to $100,000 down to maybe 20, and same kind of thing. And so I felt like I jumped out of an airplane without a parachute, and was like, okay, I got to grow wings before I hit the ground. I got to actually make feathers. And I think I came down and I just scraped the bottom, scraped the ground, and I started just barely. I made it, but man, that was tough. But I tell you what, it was so worth it, because it set the stage for the rest of my growth, and just was mine instead of working for somebody else. So
yes, congratulations.
Well, yeah, thank you. Same to you. I mean, yours was much more involved. I only had one child. You were on your third. Yeah. So yeah, crazy.
What a great opportunity to just chat with you. I really sincerely appreciate this, Jim. Thank you for taking the time.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me on the show, and we'll have to do an update. You've got so much going on, and we're also involved together with Florin. That's right. Really fun. I'm excited about that. Yes. Me too. We'll have to bring Florin on to the show again and chat about that. Maybe have a group call or do something fun with that.
Yes.
So, well, I'm gonna say goodbye, and hang on a sec. Let me end the stream. So bye, everybody.
Bye.